Hi there. Today we are speaking with Mark Fox. Mark is an entrepreneur, a scientist, an engineer, an author, creative thinking consultant, crop formation researcher, and a former Space Shuttle Chief Engineer. He has been a hot air balloonist for 35 years and built his own airplane. Mark's book, Da Vinci and the 40 Answers, a creative playbook for creativity and fresh ideas, offers solutions to any problem that can be solved with 40 universal answers.
Well, thank you
Hello.
for having me.
Thanks for being on, Mark. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great.
Good. So, where are you coming from today?
Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Florida. Nice.
Yes. Yeah.
We're having Florida weather here today. In Ontario, it is 39 with the humidex, so quite warm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. The whole looks like the whole country's having severe heat. We're obviously getting it here too. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, we enjoy it in Ontario because we only get a very short season of it. So most of us, anyhow, a lot of people don't like the humidity, but it's one of those things.
yes, right.
Okay, let's dive right in here. Talk about the expression think outside the box.
Yeah. The book I wrote was called Da Vinci and the 40 Answers, and it was that phrase "think outside the box." Maybe, but I'll explain what it is there's a Russian scientist. This is back in the 1950s. His name was Henrik Altschuler, and he went into the library trying to get books on procedures on how to think creatively, right? And he couldn't find anything. He's like, well, surely there's got to be procedures or something for it, but there wasn't. So he actually went to the Russian Navy and got a grant to go study creativity and innovation. And what he found was he looked at him and his team, they looked at 300,000 patents, and they found out that they were trying to categorize them, like what bucket does this fit in? And he found out there's only 40 answers. So, and now they've looked at several million patents, and there's still only these 40 answers. So it's called TRIZ, T-R-I-Z. It stands roughly for the theory of inventive problem solving in Russian. And I got involved in it because a friend of mine said, hey, do you know anything about it? And I'd used it in a space shuttle program and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And the problem is most of the people teaching it, they want to offend them, but most of them are Russian PhDs, and it's very, very boring. So we created a way, I created a class around it and a book that is how to use what I call the 40 principles of TRIZ, but it's these 40 categories, and you can look at them as like lenses. So the logic being is if the history of innovation has used these 40 patterns, put on that pair of glasses and look at your problem or your opportunity or whatever through that specific lens. So it's actually almost the opposite of out of the box. It's in a very narrow part of a box, looking at it at one perspective. For example, lens number one is segmentation. How do you take things out of something to make it better? So I use this example all the time. If everyone's a photographer now because you have a camera on your phone, right? But next time you're on vacation, take a picture like you normally would, then step twice as close to the subject, unless you're at the Grand Canyon, right? But get twice as close to the person or the group, take the picture again. The second picture will always be better because you've taken stuff out of the picture to make it more interesting. You see that on a lot of marketing materials and prints that are done well. It's called frame line magnetism in photography, where you take something out of it so that my mind has to help fill in the missing parts, which makes it more interesting. So that's one of the 40 lenses. Another one would be taking out. So you take stuff out to make it simpler or easier. And probably the best example is, anyone's old enough to remember the first iPod, that came out, it had no instructions. If you remember, it had a play, pause button. It had fast forward, rewind, and volume up and down. That's it. And only one place to plug in your headset, right? So they took out all the complexity to make it more creative and innovative. The opposite of that was a BlackBerry, right? A BlackBerry put 700 buttons on there, and it could try to do everything in the world. So that's the primary thing that I focus on creativity, is you get people to write what the problem statement is. What is it where I need to get more and more great ideas? And then brainstorm on around it, looking at it through that lens. And you'll come up with about 200 ideas in a group in an hour. So then you go, all right, let's figure out the top 3 that have the most potential. Then you have to do this. You have to fail in 2 weeks. So the number one reason ideas fail is what? They never get started. You come up with excuses like, you know what, I can't do that. It's going to take 8 months. It'll cost too much money, blah, blah. No, going with the mindset is I'm going to test this for 2 weeks. And you can always find a way to do that inexpensively and plan on failing, right? Just plan on failing. And a lot of times you will, sometimes you won't. And you're going to go, oh, and so unless you do that and get in the activity of trying to actually make something happen. I drink my own Kool-Aid, Tammy. I've been doing this every day with experimentation and marketing and testing and Facebook ads and whatever. As that didn't work, try something else for a week or two. I just changed a whole bunch of things 2 days ago, right? And just always be experimenting. So, and I'm using my same principles I just described, these 40 lenses. Some of them get pretty technical, and it was designed originally around engineering, but what I'm finding is I actually have more success with marketing, more success with relationships, and for your, how do you get your spouse to do what you want them to do, right? How do you get your kids to behave the way you would like them to? You can use all these creative lenses for that.
Yeah, how do you get your spouse to do what you want them to do? I think that that's a loaded question, and people would think, yeah, that never-ending honey-do list.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about the differences between the right brain and the left brain?
Yeah, you know, there's the left brain theoretically supposed to be, you know, the logical thing. The right side is the creative, but I've kind of changed my, I mean, that's what the historical dogma has taught you, but I think there's way more connections and stuff going on. And I'm not the expert in that area. I just know from a practical point of view. I'm so sorry. Oh. I was positive I turned that off. Sorry about that. Oh, so yeah, so the left brain, right brain is like, there's all that data that says that, but it's, you know, as we learn more and more about the biology of the brain and what's really going on and stuff, I think it's just much more complicated to that. So I don't actually, in my book, I talk about that, but I'm almost parroting what I've read and been taught. But I just think there's, and I, like I started to say, is my experience is more of what's the practical approach to make things happen. So I have more just techniques, and I don't really concentrate on that too much anymore about the differences. It's like, and we know all the plasticity, and you know, this happens, you get brain damage over here, that part of the brain figures out how to do that function for you. So I don't think it's that separated.
Mm-hmm. One of the things in your book, I believe you talk about, is how a solution to the answers can come up if we use all of our 5 senses.
Yeah, so it's actually, so segmentation is the first lens. This is actually kind of a subset of it. So, and this is where I get in trouble. Well, I get in trouble a lot, but when I say autism can be good, so temporary autism and creativity is good. And that's how I start one of my presentations when nobody's paying attention. I just have a chart that says autism can be good, and you have to be able to read it because the letters are mixed into the art, right? But as you know, autistic people, children, adults, they usually are hypersensitive in one area, not so much any other. So the idea is to use the same lenses like I just described, but use them by thinking about one sense pick one sense and only concentrate on that for, like, say the 5 senses for like 10 minutes. So think about sight. So what do I want to see? What do I want to not see? Right. And you just brainstorm around that. And what it's doing is, it's what I said earlier, it's kind of focusing to a different part of the box instead of because you're experiencing all 5 senses plus a whole lot more at the same time, but it's a mosaic, right, that's being mixed. So if you're trying to come up with ideas, it's like, you know, concentrate on What do you not want to see? Okay, at any outdoor concert, you don't want to see 500 women stand in line to go to the bathroom in the porta potty, right? So you think through that process is, I know I'm going to see that. What do I do about it? I know I'm going to see trash cans that are overflowing. What do I do about it? More trash cans, more people to empty them faster, right? So you go through each of those senses, and it's almost the same thing. You'll come up with a couple hundred in a few hours, and or in an hour, and that focus allows you to just say, okay, I'm not going to think about any other sense for this 10 or 12 minutes. What do I want to smell, not smell? What do I want to feel, not feel? Think about Christmas. You don't want to hear kids screaming and crying and upset. You want them happy. You want to hear Christmas music, and you want to smell cookies, right? And food. So that's what it is. It's sensible design is what I called it, where you just focus, like I said, on each sense individually to see what you come up with. A good example of the wrong way to do it. SeaWorld in San Diego, right? Right when you walk, so there's an offshore breeze, right, coming off the ocean. Well, when you walk into the gate there, they put all of the trash dumpsters behind a fence at the entry gate. Nobody wants to smell that going into the park, right? So if somebody had just sat down and thought through that, what do I want to smell, not smell? I don't want to smell garbage before they enter, right? So that's what it is. It's called sensible design. It's kind of a subset of the TRIZ lens segmentation.
So is this something that you would suggest people just write down a list of things, or just focus only on the sense and just mentally collaborate or create something just in their mind?
The most success that I've seen is so you brainstorm with a group, 8 to 12 people is optimum. And a third of that group should know nothing about your business or whatever you're trying to do. None, right? So you want that complete. And when people go, oh, you can't do that, and we have all these trade secrets. No, you don't. You have employees, and they can leave anytime they want to, right? So I always tell people and my clients, look out your window, look across the street, see who the company is over there, and just invite them over for pizza and beer for an hour, okay? Or go to the college and say, hey, do you want to ask the students if they want to say they brainstorm with our company on their resume, because they don't have that experience, and just bring in people that a third of them should know, like I said, nothing about your product or service or any idea before they walk in there. And it makes you just think about it from a different angle. So it's forcing that creativity, because in your group, if you guys try and brainstorm around stuff, everyone's going to get frustrated. We've already done this 5 times and we don't know any better because you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? So that's how I do it. It's the simplest, least expensive technique you can possibly do, is invite a third of the strangers over, pizza and beer, whatever, get them over there, or let them say, hey, you can put it on your resume. And there's a place called the Wizard Academy in Austin, Texas, where I have the most success teaching my class, because it's almost always 25 people, 2 or 3 from a different business, right? There's not a whole group that's there. So I'll have Dell employees and artists and songwriters, and then you just get that mix, which most people don't have or take advantage of. And they, like I said, they get too tied up in my secrets, and I don't want anyone to know who they are. And it's like, you know what? So I did this one time. I was doing a keynote presentation at a creative thinking conference, and everyone had these little ideas. You hear people whispering of people going to steal my idea. And, my sister's like that. She's terrible. I mean, if you're talking at lunch and you raise your voice a little bit about any idea she has, shh, they're going to steal it. So I stood up in this presentation. I said, look, there's 1,000 of you here. Okay. If every person stood up and had $1 billion idea, and you shared it with everyone in the room, and all of them were $1 billion idea, statistically speaking, 0 of you would get up and do anything. So you're not going to steal your idea. Now, hypothetically, let's say 5 of you did. Let's say 5 of you took that third idea and all 5 of you stole it. Okay. By the time you went through development, testing, trying to get the product there, the evolution it has to go through, no forensic scientist could tell you that those 5 products came from that original idea, because it's changed so many times, right? I mean, if I told you how many times I've evolved with this product, right, is where the original idea came from, you'd never know where it came from. So my message there is, quit being so secret about your you're not that special, right? And people aren't really going to steal your ideas. They don't have the energy and money and motivation to do it in almost all cases.
I believe that. I think that the universe offers everybody a bunch of ideas at the same time, and they knowing full well that not everybody is going to have a follow through with it at all.
Very few people do, right? And it's that one where I said earlier, Tammy, where I push people, how can you fail in 2 weeks? They almost get upset with me because it's like, now, ooh, he put me on the spot. I have to actually do that. And I tell them I'm gonna follow up with you in 2 weeks and see what you did, see what the results were, and they don't think I'm gonna. And I put it on my calendar. I call them up. So it's been 2 weeks. What'd you do? Right? So I just embarrass them into it. So it's that whole thing of most ideas fail because they never get started. Just try something. You know, that whole myth about the eureka moment is not true. It's usually what the hell just happened. I ran this experiment. I was expecting to do that. A couple things that I expected to happen happened. Rest of it, no. Right. So just what I was mentioning earlier about Facebook ads and Google. I mean, it's crazy. The ones that work the most is what everyone would bet would not work. Right. Here's an example. I know a lot of marketing experts, right? A lot of them. So I have 55 protocols on this device, and every one of them told me just concentrate on one thing because nobody will believe that you can do all that stuff. And I kind of believe that. Everyone buys it because it has more than one, right? So I now have a new presentation I just made yesterday that I updated. Not a presentation that I updated yesterday for the next time I'm presenting there is experimentation trumps experience. You guys think you got 30 years experience, you know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. You might be right about some things, but go experiment and see what people actually do and what works and what doesn't. And so you should always be experimenting, especially when it comes to marketing and sales.
Absolutely. So for the people that don't know, Mark's talking about this device, and I was not really wanting to get into this conversation. Here we are. So they do say you're sly as a fox. I don't know where that comes from, but here we go.
Now we don't have to talk about that. No, I started Sly as Fox because I thought the name of it just sounded cool 20 something years ago. And it was like, part of what we were just talking about is the creative thinking part. For example, if you're running an ad, we measure ads, part of the success of an ad on how many people complained about it, right? How many people complain, not just how many people liked it, how many complain, because it means you're making a difference and you're moving the needle. So most ads don't work because they're totally bland and they're trying to stay in the middle. And most ads, my partner says this all the time, most ads are written not to offend. They're not written to persuade. So I have hundreds of friends tell me, Tammy, sly as a fox makes it sound like you're evil and you're doing something like you just alluded to. You're doing something under the table and it's not right. And it's like, no, I'm getting your attention. All I'm trying to do is get your attention first. So then I can talk to you, right? Or potentially, right? So that's why I actually did it. And the more people, when they say that's the name of your company, Sly as a Fox, you need to change that immediately. So the more people that complained about it and went, all right, cool. I know it's got your attention. It's doing something.
Yeah, I actually wasn't saying that as to be offensive at all. I think
No.
I actually think it's good, especially because of your last name. It's kind of funny. So it was in jest. So let's talk about this device just for a few minutes. I know my mom actually used to use a device that is similar to this for high blood pressure, and it was called Zona. And this is a device that you hold in your hand, and there's a little pressure monitor on it, and you hold it for a specific amount of time in the right hand or left hand, I can't remember. And it was one of its purposes developed by, I think it was a US Army or something. Anyways, was to bring down blood pressure. So Mark has a device, which I'll kind of pass it back to you, Mark, and you can introduce it. I know it's for many different kinds of health concerns. It's small, like a little MP3 player like you were talking about that you wear around your neck or in your pocket that helps to balance the body's electromagnetic field, I want to say.
Yeah, so the device you're talking about is kind of a mechanical muscle feedback system, which is probably a breathing system that they had with it too. I don't know that product that well, but this one is a little different. It's called PEMF. So it's pulse electromagnetic field. And it's not some total woo-woo science because you're engulfed in it right now. The Earth puts out 7.83 hertz, 14.1 and 20.3 as a PEMF. So you're there all the time. That's why we have grounding mats and other things, right? To get your feet back on the earth and all that. So it's, the short answer is that it's fairly well known that if you're, well, the cells in your body, your whole body is electrical, but the cells in your body have a charge on, just like a car battery. When that charge goes down, you can get sick, right? Most illness is tied to that or inflammation. So the energy, it recharges your cells batteries. That's it. And that's the simplest explanation. The second one is ATP, which is the main thing your body cells use for food. It increases ATP up to 500%. Now, I've had several arguments with people. It's not just the magnetic field, it's just energy, to kind of your themes, because I had this conversation yesterday. I believe you can deliver it with light, vibration in this chair, sound, electrical current, or magnetic fields, right? People have been telling me forever, you crazy, you can't do this with light. Well, MIT discovered you can reverse Alzheimer's with 40 hertz, right? And talking about funnel focus in the boxing, I talked to MIT 2 weeks ago, and the guy that did the study, and he's like, well, how many hertz is it? And I go, it's up to 1,000 hertz. Well, you can't see that. I go, right, you can't, but your skin has light receptors on it. He goes, no, it doesn't. I go, okay, you're a PhD, MD at MIT. Even I knew that in 2000, we discovered that skin has light sensors, right? So that's what it is. It's energy it's kind of like, in this analogy, a drug doesn't really fix anything, right? It just lets you, give you enough time for your body to heal itself. So what this does is it's just giving you energy. It's giving you energy so you can heal yourself faster.
Mm. Absolutely. And we know this with Reiki and some forms of hands-on healing. You're doing the same thing. You're directing energy from whatever the ethers through your body to whoever is receiving the energy. So
Right.
energy is definitely something that we are energy beings per se. So, and we do respond to different frequencies. Absolutely.
Yeah, and what's weird, what's really strange about that part is is the turn of the century, back at Tesla's time, and there's a whole bunch of electrical stimulation, medical electrical research being done, lots and lots and lots of it. And in 1934, a thing called Flexner Report came out, and it basically said, if you're not doing, this is gross, if you're not doing surgery or drugs, you're going to lose your doctor's license. And then all the funding got pulled. Carnegie and those guys pulled, Rockefeller, they pulled all the funding from universities. So almost all of that history got lost, right? Can't practice anymore. So the machines went to dumps. They went in the back field, and that research didn't get published, right? So, which is sad, because your body's chemical, electrical, and mechanical, right? Just like we have those three engineers, right? So it does all that, and we're, at least in, as you know, right, in the Western world, we're forgetting the electrical part or the energy part, and just worrying about, let's cut people and give them drugs, which
Yeah.
is sad.
I think we need to get away from that allopathic medicine. We need it, absolutely. If we have heart disease and we need a cardiologist, that's a very important thing. I'm not going to ask my homeopath, however, to do open heart surgery on me.
Right.
But I think we want to take Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and blend it. And now we've got really great healthcare. So it's maybe using devices like this, or using, again, the energy body along with the physical, and combined, now we can really work towards healing and promoting a more healthy lifestyle.
Right. I agree 100%. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I just want to take a little off the beaten track here. Last week I was at the Empire Cheese Factory in Campbellford, Ontario, and there was a grain field there, and I saw a bunch of tractor wheel tracks in the field, and it made me think about your comment about crop circles. And you said 95% of crop formations are not man-made, and you can prove it.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said it just that way, because usually as that opening line, people go like, what did you say? Not man-made? That's what I said. So I've been interested in crop formations for a long time. I'm not obsessed with them. Okay. So you start with that. I'm not obsessed with them. I've read every book, I think, that's written in English from researchers, and there's not that many. So I've just always been interested in it. And I was reading a book called The Source Field Investigations, which was the weirdest book I've ever read in my life about just paranormal, strange energy, all kinds of stuff. And it threw me at the end, like in the appendix. I think the author's name was Wilcox. I don't remember his first name, but he showed a picture of a crop formation and he said, I don't even want to really talk about crop formations and take credibility away from my book. And I'm like, are you kidding me about the other stuff for 500 pages you've been talking about? But it was a crop formation that was a shape of pie. It was like a pizza, but it was representing pi, 3.14159, whatever, okay? And some scientists discovered that 2 years after the formation was gone. So, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not a crop circle. That has intelligence in it, right? It's got math. I mean, they all have math in them, but this was not symmetrical. So, and I'll explain it in a second, but the word authentic, which means not man-made, okay, is I called up the emailed them, two of the top researchers, Lucy Pringle and Michael Glickman. And I said, did you guys go into that field and is it authentic? And they both said, yep, we did. And it is authentic. I go, really? So I'm like, I got to go investigate this myself. So we went over there one summer. My wife went with me. She told her boss, I'm going to England with my husband to research crop formations. And he said, you must really love him. Okay. It's like, he's get there. So when I say prove it, so I've looked at all the science that's out there and I won't go through them all and bore you, but it's, I have like a 18-point checklist that says, is it man-made or not? Number one, by far, this is, if it's man-made, it's bent over and broken because you smashed it with a board and it dies. If it's not man-made, it's going to be pushed over and the knuckle on the wheat will have inflammation. It'll be inflamed. It'll be like 40, 50 degrees larger and it's at a 45-degree angle. You can't do that with your hands. We even sat in a formation. My wife goes, well, I think people just sat here and bent all these. I'm like, try and bend one, Barb. She bent it and it broke. She bent another one, it broke. Another one, it broke. She went, But still took her 8 months after this to finally convince herself that maybe there's something there. Even when we got back, our friends asked, is there anything to it? No, I think it's still all fake. I'm like, are you kidding me? But anyway, so there's that. And it'll stand back up if you don't step on it, if it's authentic. If it's man-made, there's going to be mud and footprints and stuff everywhere because it rains all the time in England, right? So, and crop formations, by the way, Tammy, are probably everywhere in the world. You don't hear about them in the United States because nobody's looking. You know how many people are researching crop formations in the US? 1.5, and I'm the half. Okay, another one's a lady. Okay, there's 1.5 of us. So nobody's looking for it. Nobody's in an airplane looking for them. So there's that. There's some other bizarre stuff, which is very common, is your cell phone can die, your camera can die, electronics. It did that to me. What's very interesting is there's evidence that the soil in the formation got to 800 degrees centigrade and nothing caught on fire. And everyone goes, liar, liar, pants on fire. You can't prove that. Yeah, you can, because there's BBs everywhere. So it's taking the iron in the soil, it's heating up so much, it's made a molten BB out of it. And so there'll be a lot of BBs there sometimes. So there's about 15 markers like that. There's other ones that you can go look at, and it's like, but the people that are researchers that understand, you'll walk up and go, you can immediately almost tell, like, this is man-made, there's footprints everywhere and they're all broken and it's ugly. Now, things that I think are very interesting is, okay, you just sit back and from a scientist's point of view, go, okay, they're all man-made. Let's just say they're all man-made. How did this happen? Okay, so they've estimated on like one that was at Stonehenge, and it happened in 10 minutes during the day. And everyone could see it because it's on the side of a hill and it's a gigantic tourist attraction. So it wasn't made in a month, okay? They estimated it would take something like 80 people a week to make. So where are those 80 people? So that really scratched my head around that. I was like, out in Wiltshire, you've got a couple B&Bs and a couple hotels, but there's nowhere, if I had $1 billion to fund it, there's nowhere for me to put the people. There's no tents. There's nowhere for them to sleep. Where are they? Right? So you start asking simple stuff like that and you go, there's something really to, I give a presentation. I tell everyone, I'm going to get about 8 minutes into this hour and you're going to get upset and you want answers. Just hold on, because I'm not going to give you all the answers because I don't have them. I'm not making stuff up. I'm just telling you, here's what it, because they want me to jump to right to aliens and where are they at and all that stuff. I'm like, no, this is, I'm presenting data to you. You make up your own. And I do it to tenderize their brain. It's back to what you were talking about at the beginning with creative thinking. I do it to try and think a little bit different. Now, what really, part of that thing that's really interesting to me about it is nobody cares. I got a lot of rocket science friends and stuff, and I try to explain it to them. They won't listen for one. I got a soccer game to go to, right? They don't. It's kind of like, here's a statistic I heard 2 weeks ago with the new discoveries on the telescopes and stuff. They're estimating now, astronomers, that, try to wrap your head around this. For every grain of sand on the planet Earth, you can't wrap your head around that, but for every grain of sand on the planet Earth, there's probably 10 to 100,000 galaxies.
Wow.
No one, you can't process that. So when I try to explain to them the crop, and they're like, I ain't got time for this, right? You know, it's like, but so that part is interesting to me, and just confirmation bias that people want to hear what they want to hear or type thing is, this is an amazing thing from the night. So this is 1990. So this is 30 years old, that the PR, the amount of PR behind this is still remembered today, if you're old enough, that when this got a lot of attention, the military is looking into it. Doug and Dave, okay, these two 70-year-old dudes came out on the news and they were covered in every paper, news everywhere. It's like, we made every crop formation there is. And people, it's hard to find this clip, okay, but it's an interview with a journalist. It says, so you made both these crop formations last night in Wiltshire? Both of them? Yeah, we did. We're good. Okay, did you make the one in Denmark last night? And they got to look over at the producer and they go, he's not supposed to ask us that, right? So that is always amazing to me, that PR of whoever, whatever was behind that push of money. I have friends my age still remember, yeah, it was two old guys that made them all. No, I mean, and there's like, in Wiltshire, there's on average is about 50 a year, right? I haven't checked this summer yet how many there are, but I'm sure there's 20, right? So there's like 50 every year in that area where people are looking. So when I say people, I'm talking like a handful of people and one pilot in a two-seater plane. He's the only one flying people around looking for him. So they could be everywhere, but you don't know. And there's been reports, I think the first, it was 1678 was the first published report that said, it was called the mowing devil, that somebody put in a paper is some devil thing's making this pattern and keeps cutting my wheat down. And if you can get the farmers in England, you get a couple beers in them off to the side where their friends aren't there. I go, have you ever seen these before? Yeah, I see them every summer. We just don't bring it up, you know, we just go around it. I don't want all the controversy. It's so that part, to more than the phenomena, as much as the phenomena itself, the psyche part of it is super interesting to me, that I'm the half a person in the United States that cares and nobody else does. Right. And it's in it. What we were talking about earlier is like, take an idea and there's zero odds that you guys get up and do anything about it. Same thing. Every time I present this, nobody, even though they're excited and amped up, nobody 2 weeks later goes and investigates it themselves or reads it or try to talk to people. So anyway, it's a long answer to what you asked me, but I'm not obsessed with it. If your listeners think I am, and no, it's just something very interesting to me. For that reason, it's like, okay, it looks like about 95% of them are not man-made.
And it is really interesting, and it's not something that you have a conversation normally with somebody about. Your hot air balloonist. How did you get into that?
I just honestly, now you're gonna date me, Tammy. So it's like in college, I saw a balloon go over in a college. I go, you know, that would be fun to do someday. And then when I got to Utah, I moved out there after Space Shuttle Challenger. I worked on the solid rocket boosters. I was like, you know what? Back in college, I remember seeing a balloon and I wanted to kind of do that. So I looked it up in the yellow pages under hot air balloons. I just dated myself, called them. I said, Park City, I like, how do you get involved in this stuff? They go, yeah, come take a lesson. So I did, and I got hooked on it, and I've been flying balloons ever since. So it's my
Nice.
favorite. It's one of my favorite things to do. except I want to get attacked by all the listeners, but I've never charged anyone for a ride in my life, and it's expensive. But here was my logic. Initially, when I started this 35 years ago, people would offer, can we help pitch in for propane? Propane was 19 cents a gallon back then. I go, the 2 bottles of champagne cost 5 times that, so don't worry about it, right? So just go. So then I just got in this mode of not ever charging people. And what's really cool is hopefully next year when my wife retires, we're going to do a thing called 87 Dreams. And here's another creative thinking thing. I want it to be memorable. So my wife said, for a year, why are you calling it 87 Dreams? That's so stupid. Why 87? I go, because it's weird and it just has a number people remember. She goes, no, you need to name it. We're not going to do 87. We're going to do more than that. 87 doesn't make any sense. Now, for the last 4 years, she's the one that tells all the friends, when we do 87 Dreams, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, there was something to try and be memorable. And we're going to just fly around the country and try and take disadvantaged kids and stuff for free rides.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So
Yeah.
it's what I'm kind of doing anyway, right? It's like most of my friends are too lazy to get up at 5 in the morning. I don't like getting up early either, but if it's ballooning, I'll get up.
Yeah, for sure. And what a perspective it is to see the world from those heights and to to see the world in a different way. And I think that's a portion of what you've been talking about all this whole podcast interview is just let's look at things differently. Let's not just look at black and white. Let's see where some gray areas are and fill in some blanks maybe.
Yeah, and ballooning just you'll get a kick out of this because I've only had one woman stay scared. Most people, which I tell them, if you don't feel anxious on your first balloon ride for the first 10 minutes, you're scaring me because there's something wrong with you. Okay. But it's not to stereotype, but I will. Right? So usually what happens, you take off, the woman will go, oh my God, this is beautiful, because it's not a carnival ride. You're just moving with the air. The men will start going, why is it made out of wicker? How strong are these cables? And they start looking at the engineering of it. You're like, okay, maybe that's part of the left brain, right brain type thing, right? In some sense, it's like, but if you don't feel a little bit weird at first, and then, if it's going to get a plaque one day, it says the top 10 questions you're always going to get asked in ballooning. Like, how did you get into this? You already hit the first one. How high do you go? Do you have to have a license for it? How much does it cost? How do you steer it? Right. So you have the same questions constantly. And the way you're steering it is you're going wherever the wind's going. And the wind happens to have usually different layers going different angles, right? Not always, but in the Northern Hemisphere, usually between the ground wind and 1,000 feet, it's going to turn right 30 degrees because of the spin of the earth. The Coriolis force. Now, if you get out west of the Mississippi around mountains, that's not true. It could go every possible direction, but that's kind of how you steer it. And the hardest thing of flying a balloon, it's not hard. Well, the hardest thing of flying a balloon is it's not like a car. You got to be 20 seconds ahead of it, right? So it's not going to do what I'm telling it to do because it's so massive. Now, the hardest part of ballooning, and this is back to psychology and emotion and energy, the hardest part of ballooning by far is landowner relations. So 19 out of 20 people love it. 1 out of 20, guy with a shotgun and he's on coke, right? They're just, so me, it's just super hard for me and my friends who know my personality. This is the hardest thing for me to do is, and it's a life lesson that you got from ballooning, but it applies to everything. Nobody can argue for more than 10 minutes if you don't fight back. Nope. I've had shotguns in my head, they screaming at me. And it's like, yes, sir. No, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, I will do that. No, I won't land here again. I will tell the other pilot. Right? They run out of, you can't last 10 minutes. My world's record was a guy who lasts 7 minutes and he fainted to his knee. Okay. And he just kind of almost completely collapsed. And he looks at me and goes, I'm sorry. He goes, I know you wouldn't know this, but 5 seconds before you land in my yard, my dad died on the couch. So he died right there. Then I heard the balloon land. So that's why I'm yelling at you. Can you just get your stuff and get out of here? Yes, sir. Right. So I make the guys, it's never the women. I make the guys who are the passengers sign a contract, right? That says, when we land, you are not allowed to talk. Nope. Because it's the passengers are going to go, he gets yelled at for about a minute and a half and goes, what the hell is your problem? We didn't hurt anything, right? And right when the passenger says that, guns, and you're not getting out, and I'm gonna shut my gate. So my favorite story of that is in France, the largest man in France was in the smallest possible car. This is like a cartoon. I took out about 50 yards of his wheat. I didn't mean to, but it was a high wind landing. He comes like that. He comes out. I'm like, this guy's massive. He's screaming at me. I'm trying to do my best French that I know. That's terrible. I try to give him some money to pay for it, and he doesn't know. So I hand him a glass of champagne, and he goes, nah, and then he grabs it. Right. So then after 2 glasses of champagne, he's like, all right, like follow me. So I figured we're going somewhere to settle up and pay for stuff. Right. He takes us to his house and made us lunch, him and his wife. Right. So it went from this guy wants to kill me for ruining his wheat to they're making us lunch because I didn't fight with him. I didn't argue. It's like, yes, sir. No, sir. I'm sorry. So yeah, nobody can argue for more than 10 minutes, and 7 minutes is a long time when you're getting yelled at.
Yeah.
A long time.
No doubt. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, Mark. If somebody wanted to find you, where should we send them?
So there's made a special page for you. So Resona, RESONA, Resona.health/TLC. So it's maybe, and they can go look at it. They can learn as much as they want about it. And there's a special offer, like $150 off and stuff. But they just go spend time, look at it. I have lots and lots of videos and information and the tech, and you can go down the rabbit hole as deep as you want until you get into PubMed that has hundreds and hundreds of articles. But it starts off very simple as here's what it is, simple terms. And then the deeper you want to go, the deeper you can go.
Perfect. And we'll put that link into the show notes for everyone. Is there anything else you'd like to leave listeners with, Mark?
No, just it's Friday, and hopefully everyone has a good weekend, or they're probably not going to see it for a while. But no, I just thank you for your time and stuff, and listen to me. I love telling that story of ballooning, and had to think about some of the creative thinking ones because I haven't taught a class in a year, but that's always very satisfying too. I do it at a nonprofit and stuff, and it's really fun. I'll leave it maybe with this one comment because I've had several soldiers, and we had talked before about passing on and trauma and stuff, and PTSD is the biggest trauma, is the biggest protocol that I have. But I had one 17-year-old girl tell me on a Zoom call, she goes, Mark, she goes, I've never had a date in my life because I have Tourette's. And she was a student in my class, and right when she said that, I saw that I knew she had tics or something, right? And she's, so no boy is going to ask me out. They all think I'm a freak. Well, I ran brain balancing protocol, and my Tourette's went away, and I have a date on Saturday night. I was like, that made me cry. I was like, I mean, if that doesn't put goosebumps in your arms, you're not human, right? So that's part of why I'm still doing it, is some stuff like that. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So have a look at that page if you're listening, and yeah, take care, Mark, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
You too. Take care.